everybody. Christian Ballard, Ballard Sports Media, coming at you with a video today, a one-on-one interview. Should be a quick one right out the gate with the one and only Michael Casagrande of AL.com. How you doing today?
I'm great. How's everything with you?
Everything's going good. I'm going to be honest, as an Alabama fan, I kind of cried a little bit when Nick Saban broke the news that he was retiring, but you can't blame him. You can't deny greatness when you see it. And ultimately, what was your reaction when you had heard the news? I mean, were you as shocked as anybody else, or did we kind of see this coming after 2023?
I wasn't shocked. I wasn't. I mean, I said it's partially surprised, partially not. I mean, if it makes any difference, we already had the story written in advance, anticipating this happening. I mean, it was going to happen at some point, one way or the other. But I already had a pretty long story written that I just had to plug in a few details and before it was published. So we were prepared. We didn't have any specific intel that he was retiring that day or this year, but we were prepared for it one way or the other. There were some warning signs or whatnot that this could be coming. So never fully convinced it will happen until it does. But when it did, we were prepared for it and try to do our best to cover it.
Well, I think you guys have done a fantastic job with that. Getting into some other questions that I have, when you look at Nick Saban's legacy, 7 national titles all time, the most of any head coach. What would you say, though, outside of his record, his numbers, and everything like that? And he's got a record of 292, 71, and 1 as a college football coach all time, at least according to my research. I'm assuming I got those numbers right there. Outside of the numbers, what do you think stood out from his career and just overall as a human being, and what made him a good coach?
What made him a good coach, I think he's just kind of wired differently than the rest of us. He's got a ability to focus in and to be as detail oriented. When you're just talking to him, you just can tell he's just kind of on a different wavelength than most of us. I don't know how happy, happy he could have been in the middle of all this coaching, the way he was just so wired for what was next. There's really no time to celebrate any successes. It was always on to the next thing. He was just wired differently than the rest of us. But I mean, his legacy to me is the consistency with which he won at Alabama. The run he went on from 2008 until 2023, his final year. I mean, I've covered him for 14, 15 years, and the worst team I ever covered won 10 games. So they were just consistent in a time where there just weren't teams that were that consistently at the top, always in the championship conversation. I maybe covered 3 or 4 games where a national championship wasn't possible. So it was just that ability to stay at a pretty consistent level that stood out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I noticed he coached through, he coached at Michigan State, he coached at LSU, he coached through different eras of football. I thought it was pretty interesting how he was one of the guys that, and I know some people are saying that, his retirement is because of all the NIL and the changes that are happening now, but there were already changes like in the 2010s. And when we got into the offensive era of football, he recruited quarterbacks like Tua Tagovailoa, and he got all those wide receivers. How would you say he assessed everything and just adapted to the changes of college football overall?
Yeah, no, and I'll have to talk about the why he retired. I think nothing happens in a vacuum. I think everything is a factor in a sense, but I don't think that he retired because of solely because of the changes in the new era that college football is going through. But yeah, I mean, there were a lot of people who said that he was done, that the run was over after the 2013, after they got beat by Auburn, and the fast-paced offenses were going to overwhelm them, that they weren't going to adjust, and they did, and ended up winning 3 more championships after that. So I think that might have been, I don't know if a defining moment, because it wasn't a singular moment, but that evolution was important to him, to really If he would have retired 2023 with those 3 championships early in the Alabama run, it would have been an impressive career and, would have been remembered fondly. I don't know if he'd be remembered as among the greatest of all time, but I think that evolution is kind of what pushed him into that stratosphere.
We're on Ballard Sports Media talking with Michael Casagrande. You have covered so much of Nick Saban's career, and from my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you did cover all of his national championships. And with that being said, what would you say stood out to you? Which did you see was the most significant for him to get in terms of this was the one that he had to get taken care of?
In terms of championships, maybe the 2015 one, because that it had followed some of the questions about he'd lost 2013, the Iron Bowl kick six. They were number one. They were on a poised to possibly win a third in a row, 4th in 5 years. Then 2014 that they went to the playoff number 1 seed, but then lost to Ohio State. And there were, I guess, people questioning whether or not that it was still viable in terms of his run of success, and winning that 2015 one was pretty big. It's hard to really put them to rank them. I mean, the 2009 one was huge just because it was the first for Alabama since '92. The fact that he was able to do it in 3 short years was huge for him, for Mal Moore proving that was the right hire to make in 2007. So, yeah, it's a good question. I haven't really thought about that in that terms, but yeah, those two maybe stand out to me.
Yeah, I would say the one that stood out to me was 2015, because when you look at it, I mean, outside of now, he never really went 3 years in a row without a title. And it was so you had the kick six in 2013, you made the first playoff in 2014, but you couldn't get it done against Ohio State. And you had a big, strong running back in Derrick Henry. You had OJ Howard. You had the guys, and you had a strong defense with guys like Jonathan Allen or whoever out there. And so I would point to 2015 as the most significant. I know people want to look at plays like 2017 with 2nd and 26, but at the same time, and you want to look at the COVID year too, because of the time in which we were as a country and everything, and how the team stuck together and how much he loved that team. But if you want to talk about overachieving and getting like to the top of the mountain, I think 2015 stood out.
Yeah, it's a fair assessment. I don't think I wouldn't argue with you on that one.
All right. So, last question I have, like I said, don't have too much for you today. You look past Nick Saban. You look at Kalen DeBoer. He's had some ups and downs as far as recruiting, transfer portal, all that stuff. It seems like he's doing the best that he can. What should the expectation be from Bama fans to Kalen DeBoer going into the 2024 college football season with all the changes, and especially the new schedule in the SEC and the 12-team playoff? What should we expect? Like, what should we get our hopes up for?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's something I've kind of thought about and probably will end up writing about at some point, sometime soon, because there isn't really a baseline set for what this new era looks like in terms of, the schedule's different. You don't have some of the penciled in wins that you may have had in the past. You have more difficult. You're gonna have more home and home non-conference games. You obviously go into Wisconsin this year. You're adding Oklahoma on the road before the Iron Bowl. So it's something I'd probably have to sit down and really look at on paper, because there really isn't something. There wasn't a baseline set before he got here for what a good record is. I don't think undefeated seasons will be more difficult moving forward, and to think that people will be, there will be 2 loss. Will there be a 3-loss team making a playoff? There are all kinds of questions that we just don't know how it works in the practical environment, since we haven't played in this new world yet, with the conferences being structured the way they are. super conferences being loaded to where they're going to be teams that are going to lose games. So if a 3-loss season happens next year, a 4-loss season, it's hard to really compare that because they haven't really played in this new environment yet under Saban to where how you can really compare them. So it's tough, and it's kind of thing where there's still a whole lot more to shake out and see exactly what this roster is going to look like, who they're going to be playing with. There's still another transfer portal window that's going to be open for them to accept new players. So after spring, so it's going to be there's still a lot to be determined, still to be continued in a large part for how this is all going to shake out. But I think there's some degree of patience that should be factored in here, that to think that he is just going to continue exactly what was going on before Nick Saban retired. I mean, especially considering the exodus in the transfer portal, that just is not something previous coaches had to deal with to the same degree in the past. So it's a good question. It's something I think that will continue to be the offseason storyline to follow with this program, because there's so much that just to be determined.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, Michael. This is Michael Casagrande of AL.com. He does a lot of fantastic work. You can always catch him on shows like Paul Feinbaum. And where else can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, mostly just on AL.com. That's the where all my work, the work that they pay me to do, ends up on there. So AL.com, there's a page where you can find all my work on there.
Sounds great. Michael, appreciate the time, brother. And we look forward to hopefully talking with you again soon.
Sure. Have a good one.
Thank you.